I remember reading a story of a 20-something guy who was asked to babysit his nephew by his sister. And his sister said, "Hey, I'm just going to the store. I'll be gone just a few minutes. And when I get back, everything will be cool. I'll take care of whatever. Just make sure he doesn't hurt himself." And so the 3-year-old nephew is playing in his room, and the 20-something uncle is doing what 20-somethings do, probably playing on a video game or something. And then the little boy walks into the room and he says, "Uncle, Uncle, somebody pooped in my pants." And the uncle was not sure what to do with that. But I find that one of the ways that we have to fight this system puts us in a precarious spot, because it's very much like those of us who feel like the system has some challenges that need to be corrected, whether it's justice or it's finance or it's political or it's law enforcement or it's education. Whatever area really gets in your craw or messes with your fur, that's the area that you need to be doing something. And in that area, we often find that we have a little poop in our pants, and that's what I want to talk about today. It's the number 4 way that we can fight back against the system as leaders, and it's also probably, well, obviously it's in the top 5 because it's number 4, but it may be the most powerful way that we can fight back against the system. I'm J Loren Norris with Leading Leaders Podcast, and I've been using that story since I first found it in the book, and honestly, now I don't remember whether that came from Jack Canfield's Success Principles or Robert Fulgram's It Was on Fire When I Laid Down on It. But I love the story, and I love what it illustrates. Even if it's a made-up story, it has this power. We've all been in the place of the uncle, looking at someone else with poop in their pants, and we have the duh moment before they have the aha moment. The duh moment of, we realize something around here stinks, and it's probably you. We also have the duh moment that only one person has access to your pants to poop in them. And it's kind of a duh who might be responsible for that. And as that revelation comes about, it's often true that the person who has soiled themselves, has pooped their pants, has made a mess of their own situation, is the last one to catch on. I remember hearing a story about, again, probably just a made-up joke, but it fits the point. 2 people in church, they're old people, and at the end of the service, he turns to his wife and he says, "I don't know what you fed me last night, but that gas, man, that was terrible stuff. That was silent but deadly." She goes, "Oh yeah, it was deadly, but you need a new battery in your hearing aid if you thought that was silent." See, we tend to not fully comprehend the impact of what's going on in us, on the people around us, on the society around us, on the system around us. We don't want to take personal responsibility for our own behavior, our own consequences, our own circumstances. And the result is that we look at what's going on and we say, well, it's got to be them. Someone pooped in my pants. My circumstances are not what I want them to be. My conditions are not what I want them to be. And it wasn't my fault. Look, there's a reality that in everybody's life that at some point we've got to admit, we've got to confess, we've got to own up to the circumstances that led us to where we are. We've got to be willing to say, my bad, that was my fault. I should have done something differently or done nothing at all. I would have been better off if I'd done nothing at all. But let me tell you where the number 1 place is where we find our circumstances way awry of where we want to be. We find that we just can't get along with the moment. We can't get along with the people in the moment. We can't get along with the problem in the moment. We can't find a solution for the moment. And right now, this moment is just kicking our backsides. And almost always that starts with the poop in our own pants. But let me tell you what the poop in our pants is. It's a stinky attitude. 99.99% of the time, The circumstances that we find ourselves in could be easily overcome if we adjust our attitude quickly on the fly. Imagine all the times that you've had a run-in with a teenager, with a person that you work with a customer, with someone in authority, whether it's a judge or a banker or a law enforcement officer. Maybe it's the loan officer who didn't give you the loan. Maybe it's the person who can't seem to process your transaction at the water bill company. Maybe it's the person who can't get your customer service right on your AT&T wireless or your Verizon internet, whatever it is. When people don't seem to get things right for us, maybe I'm the only human, but I really, really, really doubt it, that it's the attitude that gets out of control. I lose my good attitude and I get frustrated and I get irritated and I get edgy and I get smart-mouthed and I get critical. I'm the only one, right? Nobody else? Yeah, that's what I thought. I think you've all experienced that moment where things are beginning to stink and everything around you is falling apart and the circumstances are getting worse and the moment is getting worse and the interaction is getting worse and everything that's happening right now is getting worse. And the source of the worse is me. It's my attitude. It's the way I approach it. I'm the one stinking up the situation. That doesn't absolve them of responsibility. It doesn't mean that the system wasn't jacked up to begin with. It doesn't mean that the process was wrong to begin with. So I'm just going to give you a personal example from my own life from this week. I was on the phone with a client of mine. We've been doing a lot of stuff in the political circles in the realm of law enforcement versus the people of color communities. He is a person of color, and we've been very vocal and very upfront, sitting down with police officers, with parents, with students, African-American students and other minority students in South Dallas, and having the tough conversations. And so he and I are on the phone. I've got him on speakerphone because I'm driving through an area where you have to have hands-free. And as I'm driving, I turn a corner, and sitting in the middle of the intersection is a motorcycle cop. And he notices that my registration sticker is out of date. So he pulls me over. Well, I still have my phone on speaker, and I told the guy that I was talking to, hey, I'm getting pulled over. I don't like it, but I'm getting pulled over. And I thought he was going to say, okay, call me back when you're done. But instead, he stayed on the phone and stayed silent and just listened through the whole interaction. And when the officer came to the window, I addressed him, had my windows down, had my hands on 10 and 2, waited to have the conversation with him. He asked for my license, registration, et cetera, and then said, did you know your registration is out of date? And I said, I did. He said, you need to get that taken care of. You want to tell me why you haven't? And I said, well, the problem is that stupid light on the dash. We've put over $700 under the hood fixing this and replacing that and fixing this sensor and changing that and making that adjustment. We've had umpteen mechanics look at it. And the problem is we'll get the light to go off after we replace a part, and we'll drive it 400 or 500 miles and the light will stay off. But when we take it to the inspection station, they'll tell us that there's a sensor that's not ready. Cycle the key several times and then they'll test it again. And so we cycle the key, we drive it 100 miles, and guess what? Turning the key on and off makes the light come on. But when they scan it, they can't find a problem. So now the light is on, but there's no problem to detect or fix. But when we get the light to go off, now all the system says not ready. This has been an ongoing battle for months. It all started when there was a moratorium and you didn't have to worry about the registration because of the pandemic. But now we're in a place where it's got to get fixed and nobody can figure out how to fix it because nobody can figure out what's actually wrong with it. Now, here's what I personally believe, and this is where my attitude comes in, because I personally believe the whole thing is a sham about whether your engine light is on or not. If the car drives down the road and it does so safely and you can test the emissions and it doesn't put out smog and smoke, then it's probably okay. The engine light being on is a way to force you to go see a mechanic and spend $700 fixing nothing. How do I know? It's been my experience with at least 3 cars. The last 2, we literally sold with the engine light still on because no one, including the state inspection office that was paid by the state to make the vehicle pass inspection, the day we drove it home with the inspection sticker, the light came on again. And we just threw up our hands and we sold it. It's not about the quality of the vehicle. It's not about the running of the vehicle. It's not about how old the vehicle is. It's about a process of bureaucracy shoved into our life that has nothing to do with the quality of our life. It's just about someone else making a little bit of money on the side. That's my opinion, and that's why I get a little bit of an attitude about it. But here's what I didn't do. I didn't let that frustration, that annoyance, that observation, my thoughts about the whole concept of why that stupid engine light is on and who's really making money off of this, or the inconvenience that it's created in my life more than one time. I didn't let any of that flavor my way of addressing an officer who was simply doing his job, noticing that my vehicle registration was out of date. Now, if he'd come to the window and I had taken all of that frustration and thrown it in his lap, chances are things would not have gone well. As I explained it all to him, he said, let me run this check, and he asked for my insurance. I couldn't find the paper on that, and I couldn't pull it up on my phone because I didn't have enough signal because I was at the airport. And so he went back and ran it, found that it was valid insurance, the driver's license was valid, all that was good, and he said, I'm going to give you a written warning, but you've got to get this taken care of. If you get stopped again, you're probably going to get a ticket. Okay, well, my truck's in the shop, so this is all I got until my truck gets out. That's supposed to be the end of this week. Hopefully, that will be all fixed, and then maybe we'll start on this process to get this whole car fixed. If my attitude had been the frustration that I have with that stupid little engine light thrown at the officer, probably would not have ended in a written warning. Now, I'm not trying to say that every officer is as sweet and lovable as the guy who pulled me over. What I am trying to say is that more often than not, with the banker, with the bill collector, with the loan officer, with the customer service rep who can't seem to get it right after the second, third, fourth hour on the phone and the fifth or sixth transfer, yes, we've all been there, that sometimes the problem that we're really living through is the poop in our own pants, the attitude we brought to the party. Let me wrap it up with this. In one of his books, John Maxwell tells a story about a woman and her daughter that are shopping. And they go into this really fancy shop and they do their shopping, and on the way out, the woman looks at her daughter and she's like, can you believe the attitude that woman gave me in that store? And her daughter replied to her, no, Mom, she didn't give you that attitude. You had it when you went in there. I believe one of the most important ways that we can fight back against the problems we see in the system, the injustices from the banker to the customer service to law enforcement to government to politicians, the number one way we can fight back is to gain control of our own attitude, to gain control of our own poop in our pants. Because there's a real good chance that that stinking attitude that you're carrying into the moment is where the smell is coming from. I'm not saying everybody else is perfect, but I can tell you this, without a shadow of a doubt, still wrapping up the Attitude Hack, the book. The training course is already out there. In fact, I've offered to teach it for the Texas PTA in July at the Gaylord Texan. So if you're a part of PTA, you might want to be there and look for my workshop on how you can lead difficult attitudes through story power. It's going to be a key element you need to know. But I need you to understand that the power to change the things in the life around you starts with you. And that attitude is the key to change. You change the attitude you approach people with, chances are that contagion called attitude will affect them in a positive way as well. If you think I'm kidding, walk into a room where everybody's happy and come in with a piss poor attitude and see what happens. Your stinky attitude is going to stink up the whole place in a heartbeat, and everybody will have a bad attitude. If you want your life to be better, if you want the system to be better, if you want the people around you to be better to engage with, to spend time with, to have a conversation with, then try wiping your own attitude first. Try cleaning up a little bit of your own attitude. And if you don't know how to do that, if you still believe that somebody else gave you the attitude that you have, call me. If you mention this video, I will give you a free coaching session. 2 hours, face-to-face, one-on-one, you and me. We'll talk about your attitude and some ways that you can adjust it. You may not like what I tell you, but I will tell you the truth. And if you mention this video, I'll do it for free. There you go. Can your attitude get any better than that? I hope so. I hope you have a great day today because you have a great attitude today. I'm J Loren Norris with Leading Leaders Podcast for Tell It Like It Is TV. Have a blessed day. Subscribe now for our extensive video library of leadership lessons promoting faith, family, and freedom.